Emily clutched Sophia tightly as a scream tore through the dim apartment, her chest heaving with panic. Daniel's eyes burned with anger, his voice sharp as he said, "You think you can just erase me from her life?" His fists clenched as the door rattled under his hand. Emily whispered, "Please don't do this in front of her." Sophia buried her face into her mother's shoulder, trembling as the room spun with fear. Daniel's face twisted into rage and he shouted, "You'll regret this," before slamming the door so hard that the walls shook. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, piercing through the silence that followed. Emily's legs nearly gave out as she staggered backward, heart racing, whispering, "It's just us now, only use." The weight of betrayal pressed down on her chest, every breath harder than the last. In that moment, Emily knew her world had shattered, and nothing would ever be the same again. Emily sat in the quiet living room, the silence heavy after the chaos. She whispered, "We're okay, Sophia," though her voice cracked with doubt. Sophia leaned against her, eyes wide, whispering, "Will Daddy come back?" Emily's throat tightened as she stroked her daughter's hair. The picture frame on the floor seemed like a cruel metaphor of her broken life. She thought about all the nights she sacrificed, every job she worked late, every tear shed in solitude, only to be met with betrayal. Her chest rose and fell with uneven breaths as she whispered, "No matter what, I'll protect you." She forced her voice to steady, but inside she felt fragile as glass. The sirens faded outside, leaving only the sound of Sophia's small breaths. Emily's gaze hardened as she whispered once more, this time with conviction, "It's just us now, and I'll never let anyone take you away." The apartment felt unbearably small as Emily paced the floor, holding her phone in one trembling hand. Her best friend Olivia's voice crackled through the speaker. "Emily, are you safe?" Emily whispered, "He left," but it felt like the world ended. Sophia sat curled up on the couch, eyes fixed on her mother with confusion. Olivia's firm tone carried through, "You have to stay strong. He wants to break you." Emily pressed her hand against the window pane, staring at the empty street below, the siren lights fading into nothing. "I don't know how much more I can take," she admitted softly, tears gathering in her eyes. Olivia's voice steadied her, "You'll take it all and you'll fight, because Sophia needs you." Emily swallowed hard, her chest aching as she turned back to her daughter. She whispered, "For her, I will fight. Always." Sophia climbed into Emily's lap, her tiny arms wrapping around her neck. "Mommy, are you sad?" she asked, her voice fragile. Emily smiled faintly, brushing Sophia's curls back, whispering, "No, baby, I'm just tired." Her heart ached at the lie, knowing her pain couldn't be hidden forever. Sophia pressed her small ear against Emily's chest, listening to the rapid heartbeat. Emily whispered, "Do you know how much I love you?" Sophia nodded and whispered back, "More than the stars?" Emily's lips quivered as she kissed her forehead, "More than the stars, more than anything." The weight of betrayal still lingered in the air, but in that small moment, Emily felt the fragile spark of hope. She closed her eyes tightly, holding Sophia as if letting go meant losing everything she had left. The apartment had fallen into uneasy stillness, the only sound, the faint ticking of the wall clock. Emily stared at the broken frame on the floor, unable to look away from the frozen memory it held. Daniel's face smiled in the photograph, a cruel reminder of everything lost. Sophia slept quietly in the next room, her soft breaths carrying through the cracked door. Emily whispered to the empty space, "You can't take her from me." The silence pressed against her, heavy and suffocating, until she exhaled with trembling resolve. She picked up the shattered frame, pricked her finger on the broken glass and winced, but her eyes hardened. She placed the picture face down on the table and whispered, "This ends with me. No more running." The clock ticked on, marking the moment Emily's resolve began to take root. The morning light filtered weakly through thin curtains, casting pale stripes across Emily's face as she sat at the kitchen table, clutching a steaming mug she barely tasted. Her lawyer Michael spoke firmly on the phone, "Daniel has filed for custody. He claims you're unfit." The words sank into her bones like ice, her fingers trembling against the ceramic. Unfit? After everything I've sacrificed, she whispered, eyes wet with disbelief. Sophia padded softly into the room, rubbing her sleepy eyes, asking, "Mommy, are you okay?" Emily forced a smile, brushing her hand across her daughter's cheek, whispering, "I'm fine, sweetheart." But inside, her world tilted further into chaos. Michael's voice pressed on, "We'll fight this, but it won't be easy." Emily exhaled shakily, whispering to herself, "I won't lose her. Not now. Not ever." Emily's heart pounded as she sat across from her boss, Margaret, who tapped her pen impatiently on a stack of reports. "Your attendance has been slipping, Emily," Margaret said coldly. Emily swallowed. "I've had personal issues." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Your personal life isn't my concern. Deadlines are." Heat rose in Emily's cheeks as shame mixed with anger. She thought about every night she stayed late at this very desk, every time she pushed herself to exhaustion for approval that never came. "I need this job," she whispered. Margaret leaned back, her tone cutting. "Then prove you deserve it." Emily left the office with her stomach knotted, the weight of survival pressing harder against her chest. She whispered to herself, "I'll endure this too. I have no choice." Olivia sat across from Emily at a cafe, the hum of voices around them blending into meaningless noise. Olivia leaned forward, whispering urgently, "You can't let him scare you into silence. You're stronger than that." Emily stirred her untouched coffee, eyes heavy, whispering, "I feel like I'm drowning, Liv. Between the court, work and Sophia, I'm losing myself." Olivia reached across the table, placing her hand over Emily's. "Then let me carry some of the weight. That's what friends are for." Tears welled in Emily's eyes, her lips trembling. "I don't know if I can," she admitted. Olivia's grip tightened. "You can, and you will." For the first time that week, Emily felt a flicker of strength return, a small reminder that she wasn't entirely alone. That night, Emily sat at her kitchen table surrounded by bills, her hands buried in her hair. Numbers blurred on the page, debts stacking higher than she could bear. Sophia shuffled in with a stuffed bunny, whispering, "Mommy, can I sleep here with you?" Emily's chest clenched as she nodded, pulling Sophia onto her lap. The little girl rested her head against Emily's chest, oblivious to the storm raging in her mother's mind. Emily whispered, "One day I'll give you more than this, I promise." Her tears dripped onto the paper, staining ink numbers that spoke of endless struggle. The clock ticked relentlessly, a reminder that time was running against her. But as Sophia's steady breaths filled the silence, Emily found a fragile anchor in the chaos. Emily's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "I know what Daniel's been hiding." Her blood ran cold as she stared at the words, heart hammering. She whispered, "Who are you?" But no reply came. Olivia's warning echoed in her mind, "He wants to break you." Fear pressed against her chest, yet curiosity clawed at her. Sophia's laughter drifted from the other room, fragile and innocent, reminding Emily what was at stake. Her hands shook as she saved the message, whispering to herself, "If there's truth in this, it could change everything." She tucked the phone away, her eyes burning with new determination. Betrayal still lingered, but now there was also the faint spark of something else, the possibility of a hidden truth that could shift the entire battle. Emily sat across from Michael in his office. Her palms damp as papers lay scattered on the desk. "Daniel's petition is brutal," Michael said, his tone grim. "He's accusing you of instability, claiming your home is unsafe." Emily's heart clenched, words catching in her throat. "He's twisting everything," she whispered. Michael nodded, sliding documents toward her. "He's playing dirty, and it'll get worse." She clenched her fists, the weight of years of sacrifice rising like fire inside her chest. Sophia's laughter at home echoed in her memory, fragile against the storm. "I won't let him take her," Emily said fiercely, her voice shaking. Michael's eyes softened slightly. "Then we fight harder." Emily looked down at the paperwork, the words blurring, but her resolve settling. The battle was no longer just survival. It was war. That night, Emily lay awake in bed, shadows crawling across the ceiling. Memories surfaced uninvited. Daniel slamming the door, words like knives cutting into her heart. She heard his voice in her head, "You're nothing without me." Emily pressed her hands to her ears, whispering, "Stop." Sophia stirred softly in the next room, the sound pulling Emily back from the edge. She remembered nights of begging for help that never came, the hollow silence where love should have been. Tears streaked her cheeks, but a small fire grew in her chest. "I'm not the same woman anymore," she whispered. The past haunted her, but each flash of pain sharpened her determination. She rolled onto her side, staring at the faint glow of Sophia's nightlight through the crack in the door, clinging to its fragile comfort. The next morning, Emily sat on the couch as Sophia climbed beside her, clutching her stuffed bunny. "Mommy, are we in trouble?" the little girl asked softly. Emily forced a smile, brushing curls from Sophia's face. "No, sweetheart, we're just figuring things out." Sophia frowned, eyes far older than her years, whispering, "I don't like when Daddy yells." Emily's chest ached as she pulled her close. "You don't ever have to be afraid with me," she promised. Sophia nestled into her arms, small hands gripping tightly as if she sensed the storm ahead. Emily's eyes glistened, the words she wanted to say, "I'm fighting for you," stuck in her throat. She whispered instead, "You're my whole world." Sophia smiled faintly, resting against her mother's heartbeat, a fragile anchor against fear. Emily met Olivia at the park, the crisp autumn air carrying the sound of children playing. Olivia's eyes narrowed as Emily confessed, "I found out Daniel isn't just lying in court. He's hiding something bigger." Olivia's voice sharpened, "Do you have proof?" Emily shook her head, her breath clouding in the cold air. "Only a message. Someone knows, but they won't reveal themselves." Olivia crossed her arms, determination etched on her face. "Then we dig. He can't get away with this." Emily looked at Sophia on the swings, her laughter briefly softening the heaviness. She whispered, "Every move I make now feels like walking a tightrope." Olivia's gaze softened. "Then let me walk it with you." Emily's chest eased slightly, the burden lighter in her friend's presence, but the danger no less real. Later that evening, Emily's phone buzzed again. Another message appeared, "He's hiding money, and if you expose it, you'll win." Her pulse raced as she read it twice, fear and hope colliding. She whispered, "Why help me?" but silence answered. Olivia's earlier words rang in her mind, urging her to dig. Emily clenched the phone tightly, staring into the darkness of her apartment. Sophia hummed softly in the next room, unaware of the storm pressing closer. Emily whispered fiercely, "If this is true, it changes everything." She set the phone down, her chest heaving as resolve built inside her. Betrayal had cut deep, but the promise of truth burned brighter. For the first time, Emily felt she wasn't just surviving. She was preparing to fight back. Emily sat at the edge of her bed, shoulders hunched, the weight of exhaustion pressing her down. Tears welled as she whispered, "How much more can I take?" She pressed her hands to her face, trembling. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator, the sound echoing in the stillness. Sophia's drawing lay on the nightstand, two stick figures holding hands under a smiling sun. Emily stared at it, her heart splitting between despair and determination. Her phone buzzed again, but she couldn't bring herself to look. "I can't let him destroy me," she whispered, her voice cracking. The walls seemed to close in, but she forced her breath steady. Though she felt broken, a fragile ember of resilience glimmered beneath the weight of pain. Emily flipped through an old shoebox of photographs, her hands shaking as she unearthed memories she had buried. Daniel's smile stared back from one picture, but beside it was a letter she had forgotten existed. Her eyes scanned the words, the ink faded but still legible. Promises never kept, secrets hinted at but never confessed. Her breath hitched as she whispered, "So much was hidden." She felt the sting of betrayal all over again, as if the wounds had been ripped open. Sophia's laughter from the next room was a cruel reminder of the innocence caught in the middle. Emily pressed the letter to her chest, whispering, "No more lies. I'll find the truth." The shoebox toppled, spilling photos across the floor, fragments of a life she no longer recognized. Emily met Nathan at the small bookstore cafe downtown, the air thick with the smell of old pages and roasted coffee. Nathan, with gentle eyes and a calm voice, asked softly, "Are you holding up?" Emily hesitated, scanning his face for judgment. "Barely," she admitted, her tone fragile. Nathan leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You don't have to do this alone." Her chest tightened at the kindness in his words, a stark contrast to the coldness she had known. She whispered, "I'm not sure I can trust anyone anymore." Nathan's expression softened. "Trust isn't easy, but maybe you deserve someone in your corner." For the first time, Emily felt the faint warmth of possibility, uncertain but undeniably present. Later that evening, Emily answered a knock at her door and froze. Standing there was her estranged sister, Claire, eyes haunted but resolute. "We need to talk," Claire said, her voice carrying years of distance. Emily's breath caught as anger clashed with longing. "Why now?" she demanded, bitterness lacing her tone. Claire stepped forward cautiously. "Because I know what Daniel's hiding." The words pierced the silence, heavy with implication. Emily's chest tightened, her hands gripping the doorframe. Memories of childhood arguments and silence flooded back, scars that had never healed. "Why should I believe you?" Emily asked sharply. Claire's eyes softened with regret. "Because this time I'm not walking away." Emily sat at the kitchen table across from Claire, silence stretching like a chasm. "You left when I needed you most," Emily said, voice trembling with hurt. Claire's eyes lowered, her hands twisting in her lap. I was weak," she admitted. "But I'm here now because Daniel has secrets that could destroy him." Emily's chest rose with conflicting emotions. Anger, hope, mistrust. "If you're lying," she warned. Claire shook her head firmly. "I've watched from a distance too long. I can help." Sophia peeked sleepily from her bedroom door, confusion clouding her small face. Emily turned toward her daughter, whispering, "Go back to bed, sweetheart." She turned back to Claire, voice low but resolute. "If you're telling the truth, then we fight together." Emily sat across from Claire at the small dining table, tension filling the room. Claire slid a worn folder across, her voice steady. "Daniel's been hiding assets, bank records, offshore accounts. He's lying under oath." Emily's chest tightened as she opened the folder, scanning the numbers that blurred before her eyes. "If this is true, it could win the case," she whispered, her voice shaking between hope and disbelief. Claire nodded, her eyes searching her sister's face. "I wouldn't have come if it wasn't real." Emily leaned back, clutching the folder as though it were a lifeline. "Why now?" she asked softly. Claire exhaled. "Because I'm done running." Emily's jaw clenched, her breath unsteady. For the first time, the power felt like it might shift if she dared to use it. Michael sat with Emily in his office, the folder open on the desk. "If this holds up, Daniel's credibility crumbles," he said, his voice firm. Emily's fingers tapped nervously against the chair arm. "Will the court even believe me?" she asked, her voice small but sharp. Michael leaned forward, eyes steady. "With proof like this, they'll have no choice, but he won't go down without a fight." Emily swallowed hard, visions of Daniel's fury flashing in her mind. "He'll try to destroy me first," she whispered. Michael's jaw tightened, his voice calm but resolute. "Then we'll be ready." Emily exhaled shakily, clutching the folder like armor. For the first time, she felt like she had a weapon in this endless war. Emily returned home to find Sophia coloring quietly at the kitchen table. "What's that?" Emily asked softly, forcing a smile. Sophia looked up, her eyes bright. "It's us, you and me." Emily's throat tightened as she studied the childish drawing of two figures holding hands under a rainbow. Sophia tilted her head. "Why are you sad again, Mommy?" Emily knelt beside her, brushing curls from her face. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. I'm just thinking of how much I love you." Sophia smiled faintly, leaning into her mother's embrace. The bills and folders sat nearby, heavy reminders of the fight ahead, but Emily held on to that moment of innocence. She whispered into Sophia's hair, "You're why I'll never give up." Emily met Olivia at the cafe again, the weight of the folder in her bag. "Claire gave me proof," Emily whispered, eyes darting nervously. Olivia's eyebrows arched. "And you believe her?" Emily hesitated. "I want to. It feels real." Olivia leaned forward, her voice firm. "Then use it. Don't let doubt stop you." Emily's hands wrapped around her coffee cup, knuckles white from tension. "What if it's not enough? What if I lose anyway?" Olivia's gaze softened but stayed steady. "You're stronger than you think, Emily. You've survived worse." Emily exhaled shakily, the fear still gnawing but no longer in control. For the first time, she began to believe she could win. That night, Emily tucked Sophia into bed, smoothing the blanket over her small frame. "Mommy?" Sophia whispered sleepily. "Will everything be okay?" Emily's chest tightened, but she smiled softly. "Yes, baby, I promise." Sophia hugged her stuffed bunny tight, her eyes fluttering closed as Emily kissed her forehead. Emily lingered at the doorway, watching her daughter's peaceful face. Behind her, the folder sat on the kitchen counter, glowing faintly under the lamp. Emily whispered to herself, "This ends with him. I won't let him win." The silence was heavy, but it felt different now. Not hopeless, but filled with the weight of resolve. The battle was far from over, but Emily knew she was ready to fight. The courtroom buzzed with low murmurs as Emily sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands clasped tightly, knuckles white. Daniel entered with his lawyer, smirking as though victory was inevitable. Emily's heart pounded, but Michael leaned toward her, whispering, "Stay strong. The truth is on our side." Daniel's lawyer rose, voice sharp, painting Emily as unstable, unfit, a mother drowning in chaos. Emily's stomach twisted, every word striking like a blade. She forced herself to lift her head, meeting Daniel's eyes across the room. He smiled faintly, a predator circling prey. But when Sophia's name was spoken aloud, Emily's resolve hardened. She whispered under her breath, "This fight is for her." The judge raised his hand, calling for order, the weight of justice pressing heavily across the room. Michael stood, presenting the folder Claire had given Emily, his voice steady as he addressed the judge. "These are financial records, proving Daniel concealed assets." Gasps rippled through the courtroom, Daniel's expression faltering for the first time. Emily's breath caught as Michael laid out the details, each page a nail in Daniel's carefully crafted facade. Daniel's lawyer objected, but the judge leaned forward, eyes sharp, reviewing the documents. Daniel's jaw tightened, his mask cracking under the weight of exposure. Emily sat frozen, torn between fear and vindication. She whispered, "This is it," her voice trembling. Across the table, Daniel's glare burned into her, promising retaliation. Yet in that moment the scales had shifted, and for the first time she felt power settle into her hands. Daniel rose to testify, his voice dripping with false charm. "I only want what's best for my daughter," he said smoothly, painting himself as the victim. Emily's stomach turned, each lie coiling around the truth like poison. She gripped the edge of the table, fighting the urge to shout. Michael whispered, "Patience. Let him unravel." The judge's eyes studied Daniel carefully, but his words still filled the air with doubt. Emily lowered her gaze, but then thought of Sophia's innocent face, her laughter, her whispered fears. Anger rose like fire, steadying her. She whispered under her breath, "Not this time." Daniel's smirk lingered, but Emily knew it was only a matter of time before the mask shattered completely. Emily took the stand, her heart racing as all eyes turned toward her. She swallowed hard, Michael's reassuring nod steadying her. "I've raised Sophia alone," she said, her voice breaking but firm. "Every sacrifice I've made has been for her." Daniel's lawyer tried to rattle her, firing questions about finances, mistakes, late nights. Emily's hands trembled, but her eyes stayed locked on the judge. "I may not be perfect," she admitted, tears shining. "But I love my daughter more than anything, and I will protect her with every breath." The room fell silent, her voice echoing like a vow. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, his facade cracking further. For the first time, Emily felt her truth cut through the lies. The courtroom erupted into murmurs as the judge called for silence. Papers rustled, glares exchanged, tension thick. Emily exhaled, shoulders heavy but resolve burning. Michael leaned close, whispering, "We've turned the tide." Across the room, Daniel's eyes narrowed, fury barely contained. He leaned toward his lawyer, hissing under his breath. Emily straightened, spine rigid, whispering softly, "You won't break me again?" Sophia's face flashed in her mind, her promise echoing, more than the stars. The judge's gavel struck, commanding the room. "We will recess until tomorrow." Emily rose slowly, legs unsteady, yet her chin lifted high. The battle was not over, but for the first time, she walked out of the courtroom carrying hope instead of fear. The final day in court arrived, the air heavy with tension as Emily sat clutching Michael's armrest. Daniel's lawyer spoke with fire, but the words felt hollow after the exposure of his lies. Emily's chest rose and fell as the judge read his notes, silence stretching into eternity. "Custody will remain with the mother," he declared firmly. Emily's breath hitched, tears welling instantly. Daniel slammed his hand on the table, fury spilling across his face, but the gavel struck hard, silencing him. Emily whispered, "We did it, Sophia," though her daughter wasn't there to hear it. Michael leaned toward her, whispering, "You fought with everything you had." Emily nodded faintly, overwhelmed by both victory and exhaustion. She rose slowly, her legs trembling, but her head held high, knowing she had protected the one thing that mattered most. Outside the courthouse, Emily stepped into the sunlight, the crisp air brushing against her tear-stained cheeks. Olivia rushed forward, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "You did it," Olivia whispered, her voice breaking with pride. Emily clung to her, whispering back, "I almost thought I couldn't." Claire stood nearby, arms crossed but eyes softened with relief. "You were stronger than both of us realized," she admitted quietly. Emily turned toward her sister, nodding faintly, gratitude and pain colliding in her chest. For the first time in years, the weight of Daniel's shadow felt lighter. Emily inhaled deeply, whispering to herself, "This is a new beginning." The city street bustled around them, indifferent to her victory. But Emily felt the world shift in her favor. That evening, Emily sat at the kitchen table, bills still scattered but no longer suffocating her spirit. Sophia skipped in, clutching her drawing, eyes bright. "Look, Mommy," she said proudly, holding up a rainbow with two smiling figures. Emily's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "It's beautiful, sweetheart." Sophia climbed into her lap, asking, "Are we safe now?" Emily kissed her forehead, whispering, "Yes, we are safe." The room glowed softly under the warm lamplight, the silence no longer heavy but comforting. Emily looked at the folder of evidence, now closed and pushed aside. For the first time, it wasn't fear that consumed her, it was peace. She whispered softly into Sophia's curls, "We made it." Later that night, Emily stood at Sophia's bedroom door, watching her daughter sleep peacefully, her small chest rising and falling under the blanket. Emily pressed her hand gently against the wooden frame, her lips quivering. She whispered, "We're stronger now." The moonlight spilled through the window, illuminating Sophia's innocent face, a stark contrast to the storm they had survived. Emily lingered in the doorway, her heart heavy with scars but steady with resolve. The silence in the apartment was no longer suffocating, it was healing. She turned away slowly, her shoulders lighter, her breath steady, carrying the fragile promise of tomorrow. Emily walked into the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water as she gazed out the window at the city lights. The hum of traffic below felt distant, replaced by the steady rhythm of her own breathing. She whispered softly, "We'll never stop fighting." Her reflection shimmered faintly in the glass, no longer fractured but whole. She set down the glass, walking back towards Sophia's room, pausing to place her hand once more on the door, as if sealing her promise. A genuine smile spread across her face, the first in what felt like years. The apartment, once filled with fear and shadows, now felt like home again. The night stretched ahead, uncertain but filled with possibility. Emily whispered once more, "We're free."